And we're live.
We're live again.
Good to be back. Pablo, let's talk about family
Okay.
and share with us what you did during the pandemic to bring the family together.
Okay. So during the pandemic, everybody was scared and everybody was homebound, and we didn't know really what was going on in the world, everybody getting sick. Once we kind of established a little bit of the guidelines, we went to a 2.5 year ordeal. And when we say we, I mean everybody in the world. Everybody in the world. Nothing like this has ever happened before. So, what I thought was, um, let's build a tree house. I had a big tree up in the front. The grandkids were still little, and I thought, what can we do to get the family together? I'm a big proponent of exercise, and when you sweat a little bit, okay, when you sweat a little bit, it's good. But I wanted to get everybody involved, not just the guys, but the ladies too. And so we made it a project. I contacted all the kids and I said, hey, and the wives and husbands, and I said, hey, you guys are down for building a tree house for the little ones? And everybody said, yeah. And I said, okay, then we're going to do it on this date and this date and this date and this date. Let's commit to it. And we ended up going and buying lumber at Home Depot. And it was a series of steps. First, we had to buy lumber. Then we had to figure out how we were going to build it, how we were going to anchor it to the tree. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, actually. But we even got the grandkids involved. And so it was a wonderful thing. And we got together for 4 weekends, and we built it in 4 weekends in stages. We had to bring a couple guys that knew about construction, buddies of mine, and they were part of it, uh, and we had lunch out in the yard, and, it was sunny and beautiful, and it actually took a while. And that was an idea that came out of the blue because I was trying to figure out what do we do. Not just watch movies at home or eat popcorn, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that was the idea, and you were part of it.
Yeah. But so you're saying it just came out of the blue, but was it something that you saw on social media? Was it because I remember you looking up on YouTube, I think, how to build a tree house, if I recall correctly.
Well, what happened originally is that my wife wanted to buy a tree house for the grandkids,
Pre-made, prefabricated.
prefabricated. And we were doing in that time, and I said, we looked at the prices and stuff like that, and I said, we could probably build it for less.
How much is a treehouse prefabricated go for?
Well, there are several price ranges, okay? I mean, if you go for a small one, you're probably looking at somewhere around 350, $450, but you can probably get 1 or 2 kids in there. But if you go for a little bit bigger one, it's in the $900 range. And then if you've got slides that come down and you've got a little climbing thing or whatever, they could go up to $1,500, $3,000. So there's you can spend a good chunk of money. And so that was the initial idea. Let's build a tree house. No, let's buy a tree house. And my wife came up with the idea, and then as it got closer and closer to pulling the trigger, I said, well, why don't we build it? And it'll take everybody to go. Okay, when you build something, or when you take care of something, like a truck, it's your truck, you have to put gas in it, you bought it with your own money, you wash it, you keep it clean, it's way different than if it's just given to you.
Right.
Okay? If something is given to you, my idea is that particular person will not give it the value, okay, that they would if they had worked for it. Anytime you work for something, there's more value to you because you had to put time and effort and energy and so forth, and maybe sleepless nights and stuff like that
Yeah.
to obtain it. So there's more value there. So I thought, look, if we build a treehouse, everybody is gonna really be a part of it, and it's gonna, be a lot more valuable to people.
Yeah.
In fact, the other day, because that thing's been there now almost 3 years, uh, one of the grandkids went up and a portion of one of the woods broke off. And he turned around and he said, "Hey, Grandpa, the treehouse is falling apart. And we need to fix it." Because he was part of building it. And now he's older. And so he says, "Hey, we got to."
So he still goes up there.
Oh, yeah. They go up there.
It's cool because it brought the family together in a time where everybody was on their own,
Right.
which I think was genius. So credit to
Oh.
you and Mom.
Yeah, it was Mom's
Because-
idea.
But you could buy it and put it up there, but it is different because it brought everybody together, and uncles and aunts, and everybody helped to build it. And the kids, even though maybe they didn't do the building themselves, the grandkids saw the building taking place, and they saw, wow, you can create something.
Yeah. And it was a lot of fun because we made fun of each other. My son-in-law couldn't find a bucket of nails, and it was right in front of him, and that's on video. And he says, "Where's the bucket of nails? I can't find it. It's right in front of you." "No, I don't see it. Right in front." So there was a lot of stuff that was fun.
Yeah.
And you make fun of each other a little bit. Somebody can't hammer in the nails. They're all crooked. You got to take them back out again. Or you put the wrong piece of wood on the wrong spot. So, however, let me tell you, I've seen some tree houses that are very intricate, and you still have to build them. I mean, they're prefabricated, but
Yeah.
you still have to put a great deal of effort to put them together,
Yeah.
So, but we did this one from scratch, and to this day, they go up there and they actually clean it.
Mm.
They get the broom because it's a tree house, so you've got a tree above it
Leaves.
and leaves and branches that fall, and they actually go up there and they clean it, and then we have little chairs and they sit up there and they eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's a lot of fun, and we got to keep an eye on them when they're up there because that's one thing. It's quite high off the ground. And so, you got to be careful that not one of them, takes a dive from there. So,
But it brought everybody together, and that's one of the big things you always talk about is family and keeping the family together. Because so you come here with your parents as immigrants, and all you have is the couple family members that you depend on, right?
right.
And everybody's very close because there's not a lot of money, and you have to share a house and with your aunts and uncles, and right, and so that's the beginning. And then as one becomes, let's call it, more financially successful, everybody gets their own house. People now don't live on the same block necessarily. Sometimes they move to a different city, a different state. And so keeping the family together over the generations, I think, is one of the keys to keeping the family close and creating a legacy that goes long term. Because as the family bonds begin to become weaker and weaker, you start talking to your family less, you start seeing your family less, you're not as close anymore, right? So you are always looking for ways to bring the family together, whether it's like a family dinner on a certain day of the week,
Right.
whether it's mom doing a for the holidays, bringing the family together, which I know people try to do it, but it becomes more difficult. What have you seen that has worked? And I could tell you one thing. I'll give you what I think it is. I think food and a good environment has brought people in your family, it's kept them close. That's from my perspective.
Uh-huh.
Food brings people because everybody's got to eat, and then a good environment. Because even if there's food, if you're gonna be made fun of, hey, why haven't you done this, and this, and it's a bad environment, you're not gonna go there to get your food. But
It's got to be pleasant.
it's got to be pleasant,
Yeah.
and
You
I
know,
think that that's what you have done that maybe has kept the family together.
everybody. It's got to be balanced, and everybody's got to put in, you know. I have friends that have their kids in other states, and therefore they get to see their grandkids um, twice a year, 3 times a year. And when they speak to me, they say, "You're so lucky." And yes, I am. There's got to be a certain degree of luck in all of this also. Uh, uh, there's got to be a lot of give and take. And look, everybody in the world, I feel, this is my own personal opinion. I don't care if you're coming from Persia, Iran, or Chile, Argentina, Peru, France, Ukraine. We all love our families. I think for the most part, intrinsically, everybody wants what's best for their family, their kids, their parents, and if everybody could, they would give the very, very best for their families. Yeah.
That's the long one. Oh no, it's not.
So, so that's not something that is strange to anyone.
Right. All
Okay.
cultures, all
I really do
ethnicities,
believe it.
doesn't matter where.
Yeah, I'm watching a film on Netflix. Is about the Arab Nights, and everything is about family. Everything. They come together in their tents. They eat together, and there's a great deal of respect and so forth.
Yeah.
And they're on the other side of the world. You're talking about the Middle East, right? But then you go to Mexico, it's the same thing. So I think that's intrinsic in all of us. The key is having the wisdom, and you learned every day, to realize how petty things can separate you. If you really look, Jordan Peterson says that, you argue over the little things and they end up separating you, okay? Where, you should be focused more on the bigger picture. And he's right, I feel, okay? I like him a lot. And, the environment has to be pleasant, because if any little thing you pick and argue over, then it's going to be unpleasant.
Right.
And they're not going to come over, even if you have the food, okay?
Yeah.
Even if you had the food. I have a buddy of mine who one time told me, hey, I cooked up a storm and hardly anybody came. And, he sent out a letter to his family saying, why didn't you guys come? I had this big feast going on and stuff like that. And a couple of them that built up the guts to tell him, it says, hey, you're very unpleasant. We chose to be with somebody else, another family member. So, if we can't be petty about things. And then really, if you think about it, if you have an issue with someone or a problem with someone, and you don't react to it right away, you wait a little bit of time. And that's one of the 48 laws of powers that I believe they say that. We'll get to it, okay? When 2 or 3 days go by, that issue doesn't seem that big anymore. If you let a few days go by, you're going to see that whatever was really bugging you, whatever was really messing you up, it really wasn't that big of a deal. And in reality, 2 years from now, nobody's going to care about it.
Yeah.
So, and it's so easy to tell someone a nice word, a compliment. It's worked for me where I have issues with different carriers or companies or whatever, and it seems unsurmountable. And then it comes to my desk, and it's like a big fire that needs to be put out. The first thing I say is, hi, I'm looking for help, and thank you very much ahead of time, and let's see if we can resolve this thing. And then, I don't go into throwing rocks, even when the mistake is clearly made on the other side, okay? Um, I had a friend of mine that would say all the time, and my dad would say this. He said, I don't really care who made the mistake. Let's see how we can fix the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be said, if you're in a work environment, you don't want that person to make that mistake again. So now you have to implement a certain degree of training so that that doesn't happen again. Because if it continues to happen and happen and happen, then you got a problem potentially with an employee. But things can be resolved by talking to each other.
Yeah, and forgiving people, and let's say family. One day they say a certain thing a certain way. It's like you don't hold that against them. I've heard the saying, "Forgive, never forget," but you forgive, right? If you can. Easier said than done. And so you've kept your family together so far.
Yeah.
And
so far so good.
And then it extends to the bigger the family gets, it becomes more challenging. Before we went live, we were talking about the Gavinia family, which is Don Francisco's Coffee, La Llave, Gavinia. They own all of that. And a lot of the family members, I think, Lisette, I think, is one of the granddaughters. Well, now they've been brewing coffee for over 100 years now.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Started in Cuba and then came to Vernon, California. But I think she's the daughter of one of the children of, I think, the founder. I think that's the way it goes down. So she was saying that there's like 13 or 14 family members working in the company. A lot of them work together, and that we were talking about that she was saying in a presentation, you have to be you have to make it a point to want to build a relationship and have a relationship with your cousins, because you have such a huge family that everybody's doing their parties, so you have to attend the parties. You have to make it a point to reach out to them. It doesn't just happen where just because you're family you have a bond, and just because you're family you can work well together in the business. So I thought that was really cool. So you were an only child. Now you have children, and now the children have children. And so myself and my siblings, I believe, are close, and we value family because that's what we saw at home. And then also we have our own views too, and then our partners also value family, so that's important, right? But I can see how it could, as the family grows, it could become more challenging, and as people move locations, you can't physically see each other as often,
right?
And there was an interview with, I think it was Lewis Howes and there was Lewis Howes and one other gentleman, I believe, and they were asking him, how many times do you see your parents? And he's like, oh, my parents are in New York. And he's like, oh, I fly out there, I think he said twice a year.
Twice a year.
And then he's like, oh, okay, how old are your parents? Oh, they're in their, let's say their 70s. Oh, okay. So if you fly out twice a year and they make it to age 80, you're going to see them 10 more times in their life. It was something along those lines. Right?
20
more times.
20 more times.
So you're going to see your parents 20 more times.
In their lifespan.
In the next 10 years. If they make it to 80. If they make it to 80.
When you put things in perspective that way, then it becomes very upfront, where you need to see them more because you're not seeing them enough if they make it to 80.
Yeah.
God forbid they don't. Yeah, I never, I don't know that there's a perfect formula, because I think that everybody needs to put a little bit of their own in order for it to work. Okay? Because inevitably somebody's going to say something about something that they're not going to like. For example, somebody makes some kind of a cook they're cooking some kind of dish, and one family member says, "Oh, you know what? I really didn't like it." That's not polite to say to begin with, but it could potentially come out. Like, for example, "Oh, I'd rather not eat this one than eat this one." Okay, I always look at the intent.
Yeah.
Was their intent to hurt someone?
Was there
Or,
malice?
yeah, was there malice? Or was there, oh, it was just a slip of the tongue? You know, I make slips of the tongue that I regret that I have said something because it can be construed the wrong way. Now, you also have to be yourself, where you don't want to be worried about saying something all the time that's going to hurt somebody else.
Right.
You want to be yourself, you know? Like, for me, I'm not that good with chili. And if you put a lot of chili in the thing, and it's hot, then I'm going to steer away from that plate somewhat. So if you want quite a bit of leftovers, all right, put a lot of chili in your cooking, and I'm not going for it as much. But something like that. I'll tell you one thing. I never forgot this. About it's got to be over 30 years ago. Mom's side of the family. There was this lady. Her name is Sylvia, and she always brought the family together. Always brought the family together. And then something happened where there was a misunderstanding either with one of the cousins, one of the sisters, I don't remember who. But I never forgot her explanation, and I thought it was brilliant, and I always carried it with me forever. And she says, "I don't want to know the details. Don't tell me about unless you really want my help or something, don't tell me your issues in the form of gossip. Because then you go home and you resolve your issue with your other partner, your beloved, whoever it was that this came up with. But I'm still thinking, oh, this is what happened. And, I'm not, sharing my household with him or her, whoever it was the issue with. So I don't want to know the details." And I thought that was very good. You want to stay away from the details of every little intricate little thing because it's not worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the final outcome should be make the ambience a pleasant gathering. Let's have a pleasant gathering. There's a famous thing on YouTube where the kid comes up and they're having, I think, a Thanksgiving dinner, and he says, "No, if you can behave this way or whatever, you're not part of the family." And he says, "I'm not part of the family?" And the guy says, "No, you're not." And the kid picks up the table where all the food was and threw it out, and then went to the other table, which I think was desserts or whatever, and picked it up and threw it out. That's not a pleasant environment.
No.
Okay? It got out of hand. Somebody should have stopped it way before.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, and I'm not knocking them. Any family can have something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, you are a very active part of your grandkids' lives and raising them.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have grandparents growing up
No.
actively because, I mean, they passed away at an earlier age, right?
Right. Yeah, they passed away. I think there's a picture of me with my grandfather on my dad's side. I was like a year old or something like that, and then he passed away like a year later.
So they weren't, unfortunately, an active part, right?
No.
But you're such an active part, and grandparents were such an active part of our lives growing up. So, how do you see the difference, like, if you would have had, let's say, grandparents in your life? I know you had a a father-like figure aside from your father who was older, and maybe he was kind of was still like a your uncle was like a maybe grandpa figure or more of a father figure?
He was like a father figure.
Okay.
Yeah. But look, somebody somebody's gonna come and fill the void, whatever that void is. And I don't have much experience in what I'm gonna say now, but that's why you hear, or I hear people say, look, if you don't have a mom or a dad, then the streets could potentially become your mom and dad. And that could be a rough upbringing depending on which side of the fence you're on. But so someone's going to come and fill the void. In my case, I didn't have the grandparents, but I have very, very good parents. They were there, they were very supportive, and I felt loved. And we were very poor, okay? But I never felt poor. I always had something to eat and a roof over my head. And if you break things down to basics, that's it. You know? I was telling one of my grandkids the other day that I didn't have toys in Cuba when I was growing up. And he was like flabbergasted. Oh my God, you didn't have toys. Well, no. But you know what? I didn't need them. It would have been great if I would have had them, okay? But I didn't. But I did have food on my plate and I had a roof over my head. But someone will fill the void.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful. Now here it comes. Oh man.
I mean, you have that because of the grandkids.
Well, I have that because they love to hear the noise. And
That's a grandfather clock.
yeah,
Maybe you can, after you explain that, tell us a little bit about your clock.
okay. So somebody's going to fill the void, okay? And you can apply that to every field of life, I think. Now, at the end of the day, what do I know about, you know, anything, let's say, right? Like Socrates said. But for example, if you can apply it everywhere. Grant Cardone, who is at times very, very abrasive, but he's made it to the top of the food chain, economically speaking. This is a guy that picked himself up from apparently being a drug addict or doing a tremendous amount of drugs and being in a very, very dark place. He came out of that. He improved himself. He bettered himself. Now he's got a family, 2 lovely daughters, a beautiful wife, nice lady, and he's also economically successful. How does somebody do that? Okay, so what he says is, be careful who you listen to for advice.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful who you listen to for advice. Someone is going to fill that void, okay? And at some point, it's going to depend up to you as an individual to decide this is good advice that I was given or this is bad advice that I was given. And that's going to direct you in the path of your life.
It's interesting you say that somebody's going to take up that void. I was watching Mike Tyson and Joe Rogan. They were on Mike Tyson's podcast.
Uh-huh.
And Rogan was asking him, how did you meet Cusamano, which was the person that trained Tyson?
Uh-huh.
And he got him at a very young age.
Yes.
And he goes into it, and Tyson was a kid on the streets and went into the prison system, and he was just into bad stuff because that's what he was into. Cusamano actually took he became his guardian, his legal guardian. And I don't know if the age was 16. It was I think it was 16, and he became the legal guardian, and for 2 years, I believe he said Mike Tyson lived with Cusamano for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so he stumbled upon Cusimano, and the way he tells the story is that he had already seen Muhammad Ali once come and speak at one of the, these were I think like detention centers
Yeah.
that he was in, right?
Right.
For juvenile. And he saw Tyson once, and then I'm sorry,
He saw Muhammad Ali
Tyson
once.
saw Muhammad Ali as a young kid. Um, Tyson was young, and then Tyson wanted a fight, and the story goes is that the word got out that Tyson wanted to become a fighter, and so Cusimano knocked on his door and said, "You say you want to be a fighter? Well, prove it." And then that's where the relationship began. And Cusimano filled in that void, and apparently was a really good influence to Tyson.
Tremendous role model. I mean, when Cusimano died, Tyson cried like a baby. It was a father figure for Tyson. First of all, let me tell you that I have a tremendous respect for Mike Tyson. I mean, I know that when he was younger, he did a lot of things that we would not consider prudent, okay? But that wide swing has brought him back to, I mean, tremendous respect for the man. I saw an interview where he said that when Cusimano brought him into his house, the first thing that Mike Tyson thought about was how how am I going to steal something from this property?
Wow.
There's got to be all kinds of stuff that I can steal in all those drawers because he brought him into his house. So you're talking about Cusimano being a man that took a big chance, because you bring somebody like that from the streets into your property, into your home, okay? And God knows what can happen.
Yeah.
You know?
But Cusimano was a very strict man.
Strict, and gave him parameters to follow. And Mike Tyson, to his credit, he wanted to become something, you know? And they saw something in each other, and it clicked, okay?
Wow.
It just goes to hope to show you we shouldn't lose hope. You know, there's hope always. Because from what I understand, Mike Tyson had it really rough. Really rough. He had to fight for his life. And that's why he got caught up in all the detention centers and stuff like that. It's up to
Yeah.
the individual,
Yeah.
you know, try to do good. And look at him now. He's doing a lot of good in life.
Yeah. And I think him sharing his story that
Oh.
he came from that and became now,
Oh, it's powerful.
you know, it's super powerful.
Oh.
And it inspires other people. Say, and like you said, hope. They have hope because they're like, look, someone did it who maybe had it really rough too. And he inspires everybody.
I think so. I like him a lot, you know?
Yeah.
I think that he's at another level, like I told you.
Yeah.
And now he's a good role model. You know, as people change, you know? You might not have been a good role model when you were younger, but as you get older, you see the mistakes you've made, and then you fix those things if you can, and then you move forward to become better.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're around here for a very short period of time. 90 years, those that can make it to 100, but we're here for a short period of time. So in making the best of it, you shouldn't hurt other people. That's what I think, you know?
Yeah.
And having the grandkids around is a blessing. Some of my friends that don't have them around do suffer for it. You know, they're trying to find a way to, but you know, it's hard nowadays. You know, if you have a son or a daughter that gets a degree in something, and that particular something is going to excel in New York City, and you're in the West Coast, okay, but you have to go to the East Coast, and your job takes you there. If you're a computer engineer, and for some reason there's a startup company up in Seattle or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna go there,
Yeah.
and you're gonna take your family there.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the challenges.
Those are the challenges of today.
And keeping the family close. I don't know where I heard or read this, but the best present is your presence. Being around, you know, there's nothing better than being around with your kids, grandkids, you know, and being a good influence, obviously. But there was something I was gonna share about family. Oh, I wanted to close it off if you're okay with.
Sure.
A lot of people ask us, how do you guys work together? You guys must be, driving each other crazy. You guys must be, father and son, you must be up to here with it, fed up with each other. I'll share from my perspective, and then you could share from yours.
Okay.
And we can close it out.
All
But
right.
aside from family, we're also business partners.
Correct.
And we first opened the business together. I was 19, you were 51, I believe.
Okay. That's correct.
And then, because we have that newspaper,
Uh-huh.
and we worked together. Life took me another route. I went, worked with mom, then opened my own business, sold it, and then now we're as partners for the last 2 years.
Once again.
Partners again. So we're joining forces again, which is interesting. But how have we, from my perspective, how have we made that work and keep the relationship strong on the family front and then also on the business front? So for me, on the family side, the non-negotiables are, it's love and respect, and at the end of the day, we are a lot alike in many things. We're different also in some things, and so we do butt heads. But when we do, it's still a hug, a kiss, and at the end of the day, and there's no personal feelings, right? Like you don't take things personal.
Yeah.
So that's just known on the family side, and we're able to, I think, separate the two, where we definitely don't act like just co-workers. There's an extra bond that's there because we're also family. But when it comes to business and partnership, we also run a very tight ship. We're expected to bring a certain thing to the table when it comes to the business. And if not, then we call each other out. And, we have our discussions, but then at the end of the day, if we're both bringing value to the table, that's where the partnership works. And so I think we've been able to make that work as well, and not let the two get mixed up. And sometimes they do. Nothing's perfect. Like sometimes, we'll be working super late at night on some days, sometimes when it's a deadline of something, and it's like, okay, well, I also have my family, you have your family, we have to turn things off eventually at a certain point, and then say, okay, we'll pick this up tomorrow. And I think we've been able to make that work, and we're learning in it, the process. But that's from my perspective why it's been able to work for the last 2 years, working together, and keeping I think actually it's brought us even closer as a family.
I think so too. I really think so too. I agree with everything you said. Respect is the ultimate thing. If you lose respect for each other, then everything is going to deteriorate. The business and potentially the family also. I mean, I know twins that fight each other and they haven't seen each other in 15, 20 years. Twins. I know identical twins that stayed apart from each other. They were really, really close growing up, and then they each got married to different people, and the wives argued and they separated. So there's different ways of which some of that can happen. But you got to have respect for each other. And if you don't, that will be the beginning of the crumbling, because everything is built, I think, on respect. The other thing is that you need to be flexible. You need to realize that sometimes you can't do it my way, okay? But it cannot be my way or the highway. Sometimes we have to do it your way. And one of the things that it's important for me is the ability to say, okay, we're equal in this environment. We're equal. just because I'm a lot older than you and maybe I've had one or two more businesses than you, that doesn't mean that my word ranges over yours in a tremendous power fashion. That can't be the case, because you need to realize that we need to have equal strength. And we do. You just said something that was very important. We each bring something to the table. That's what a partnership is. If we don't bring value in of our own, uh, intrinsically to the table, if I don't bring some kind of value, you don't bring some kind of value, there's no partnership. If it's only one way. So what's happened here is that I'm quite aware that there's a lot of things that I need to continue to learn. Many, many more things. Just because I'm older and, maybe I've had, again, more businesses, that doesn't mean anything. Because the world is constantly changing, constantly changing. And the new blood coming up has a lot to apport, has a lot to give. And eventually replace, the old statutes that are around. So that's something that I keep very fresh in my mind. So I have a great deal of respect. And then you see the growth that we both have had. And I do believe it's brought us closer. And I think that there's a lot of people that look at us, Mike, like in Temple City, that restaurant that we go to, where the young man comes out and he said, "Hey, I really like the way you and your dad work together. I haven't talked to my dad in about 3 years," or I forget the time length that he said. But he said, "Now I'm reaching out to my dad again."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
And so, I mean, a comment like that is absolutely fantastic. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. So if he can get together with his dad, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I think it's respect. Respect is primordial in everything.
And on the business side, money is not the first priority for the business. I mean, we obviously want to do the best job for all the clients and all those things, but money is not the number one. The relationship we build with clients and customers and people that we're networking with and are part of our team, the relationship is, I believe, is our number one, and we both are on the same page with that, because without relationships there is no business.
No.
If everything you do is a one time, you're just taking advantage of a person, or you're never going to build a business that way. You're just taking advantage of people. And so I think that on the business front, we both are eye to eye on that. And I think that's why we've had the success that we've had so far and still growing.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be cool if other people get inspired by some of the stuff that we're doing, like the people that have come up to us and said, "It's cool that what you guys are doing."
Well, I think that Jordan Peterson talks a lot about that. I follow him a great deal. And he's changed thousands of lives for the better.
Yeah.
And you can't beat that.
No.
He gets very emotional. He even gets teary-eyed and everything. So more power to him, and I hope he continues to do well. And we will continue on our path.
Yeah.
And see
And we're having fun.
And we're having fun and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
All right. We'll
Cool.
end on that.